Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Krentzman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, coming to you from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Pucking Business podcast brought to you by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project as well as DraftKings. We thank them both for their sponsorships. You can check out thebamboozleproject.com. Use promo code MYPB. Save yourself 20% off your entire order on the Bamboozle Project platform across all MYPB gear and any of the other cool merch that is sold on the site. So use the promo code MYPB. Save yourself some money. This is episode number 139, Ciento Treinta y Nueve. So we thank you for tuning in, those speaking Spanish.
So fluent.
There you go. Definitely not. Do you know that yesterday, actually, I was driving my daughter home from school, and the first question she asked me, well, she told me that the only homework she had was Spanish. Could I help her? And I said, absolutely not. Not my department, so I am not fluent. You can send your questions at any time to mypbshow@gmail.com, or you can go the more popular road if you would like, and that is to DM us on the Instagram platform, and that is at Mind Your Pucking Business, all one word. You can listen to the show, as always, on your streaming platform of choice between iTunes and Spotify, or, as I see we have some people already, you can watch the show live where we will interact with your comments and with our guests in a couple minutes, and you can do that on YouTube. So welcome to
Be a part of the action.
Be a part of the action and don't let it stop. How are you, sir?
Great. How are you?
I am good. So we are on a different day today. We're going to have a guest in a couple minutes, and I think when you see the trade-off as to who the guest is, I think you will understand why we made a day shift accommodation for the guest.
Absolutely.
We can do these things around here, so we appreciate your
there's
patience.
some perks, of the Wednesday slot. Little lunchtime perks at
Yes,
TS
there
Mod.
is. Yes. I knew, the second you started to say that a minute ago, I knew exactly where it was going. That means we've worked together for 139 episodes.
Yes.
Although I think you were gone for one, so 138. Connor said it.
I was giving birth.
No. Oh, you were gone for two. Yes. You were gone for that episode. There was one over the summer where Connor sat in for you.
Okay.
We did like our summer schedule is very weird. Yeah. Like we sporadically show up, and we were on a Friday, and you maybe were away, and Connor sat in over there.
Well, I try my best to be here for you every
Just
day.
make sure when you're birthing a kid, the headphones are working.
Absolutely. Boom. Inside joke there.
We'll leave it. We'll leave it at that. I will not explore that anymore, or I will get myself in trouble with Undefeated Media Management.
The bigwigs.
And I don't want the bigwigs coming in from down the hall, as has happened in the past. So, the New York Rangers. So, we were on last Tuesday on our regular day, and the Rangers had just had one of the worst games of the year versus Vancouver. And I said, what we have seen from this team so far in this season is that when the Rangers were down, or they had a bad game, or in that case, a bad couple games because they had lost in Montreal the 2 nights previous, they had always responded. So the Rangers go out to St. Louis and did not play well. Okay. And so now, I almost thought, hello, Antoinette. Thank you for tuning in. Nice to see you. This is one of our more popular Instagram commenters. So thanks for watching live, and stay tuned for a guest in a couple of minutes. You will like her, Antoinette. I promise that. So the Rangers lose in St. Louis, and they go to Washington to start a home and home. Now, I thought, looking through some comments Friday night, there were a lot of people, and I'm not mentioning names because honestly, I don't even remember who it was anyway. But if I did, I wouldn't say it. But there was more than one people that I read that said the Saturday game in Washington is a must-win for this team to get back on track. Okay, first off, it is not a must-win game. You want to see them win. You want to see them break their schneid. But when you have the record they have, it's hard to sit here and say a game in January is a must-win game. Like, that's a big term to use. That's a game 7 term. That's a game 5 term when the series is tied 2-2. It's not a game in January when you're leading the conference or the division. So this game in Washington on Saturday was incredibly frustrating. They struggled to get things going. They went into the third period with a 2-1 lead. And the Rangers in years past, because they've had good goaltending over the last couple decades, I guess you could say, from Igor, before, even before with Lundqvist. The Rangers' record as a franchise, when you go into the third period with a lead, has been really good. They let in 2 goals within 2 minutes together in the third period and lose 3-2, and they come back home versus Washington. And now you're starting to say to yourself, look, you've lost 4 in a row. You lost to Montreal, you lost to Vancouver, you lost to Vancouver, you lost to St. Louis, and you lost to Washington the day before. Now would be the time to sit there and say, okay, we got it out of our system. We're going to get better. And they played well enough on Saturday to win. Sunday. I don't think the game Sunday and they won 2-1 was perfect. You know, you like the goal by Panarin in the opening minute. You like to see Lafreniere score a goal, although it was an interesting goal because he should have scored it, a couple other ways. It was a little kind of mini breakaway there. But in any event, it went in. The Rangers win. And then last night they welcome in a Seattle team that if you don't pay attention, and we do a terrible job of this here on the show, and I will take blame for this. I will take blame. We have done an awful job in the last 3 months here of doing things in the Western Conference and outside of the Rangers. That's going to improve a lot because football is going away in a couple weeks, and we're going to have time to do that. So as a listener, you may not be aware that the Seattle Kraken have been on a crazy winning streak that ended the day before last night in Pittsburgh. So they come in, it's another test of game, and the Rangers were the better team last night. Now, Seattle is on the end of the super long road trip. They played the night before, so it was a back-to-back. So maybe certain things there work to the Rangers' advantage. But you do like to see that last night. Now, this team will pick up and go out west for 4. They go to Las Vegas tomorrow night. They then have the back-to-back switch in Southern California. They'll play at the Kings on Saturday and the Ducks on Sunday. And then they go up to San Jose. Now, in the past, right, I would always envision going out west as being a thing you never want your team to do. But if you remember earlier this season, the Rangers went out to Western Canada and Seattle and swept the road trip and went 5-0. So this team can play on the road, and Vegas is playing well. The Kings are also very good. The Kings are another team that we have not done a good job educating you guys on how good the Kings are. But Anaheim is struggling. San Jose, we know how terrible they have been with David Quinn. There are some winnable games out there. So what you would like to see is them carry the momentum that they have had from the past 2 home games to kind of stop the mini slide that they were on and kind of get things rolling. Now, one thing that changed on Sunday, and it's worth noting, is that Kaapo Kakko returned. Now, he did score last night, and you could see the relief on his face was awesome. If you look at his face, it reminds me of I'll use an example in real life. It reminded me his goal last night, and I thought of that, where it's like you're a little kid and you're playing a sport and you're not good at the sport, and somehow you're playing a hockey game and you score a goal and you get so excited, or soccer. Like, it reminded me, like his face just looked like it was a relief, like, oh my God, I scored a goal. So hopefully that gets him going. But Kaapo Kakko returning is interesting in this sense, and this is going to be a question we ask our guests in a couple minutes. Is Kaapo Kakko's return to the lineup more about, is it as much as he can play defensively a little bit as he can producing, because he doesn't produce as much as we all thought he would. So for those of you that are already putting in comments, is Kakko's return really matter as much defensively to this team? Because if you look, their record overall was not that good.
Well, this is what we talked about last episode, is like, when he was gone, didn't we have a little bit of a slump?
We certainly did. The record was about 500. And actually, I think the record ended up under 500 because of the couple less losses they had. So it's not to say that the team can't win without Kaapo Kakko, but I think there's something that you can see the team will misses a little bit when he's not there. Now, one other thing I want to mention about this. When people were saying on Saturday, must-win game, the real Rangers are coming out now. Now you see it's the real team. Here we go.
Panic button already?
Yeah. The way that the Rangers started, whatever it was, what was it, like 18-4, if I remember? It is close to impossible. It's not impossible because the Bruins did it last year, but it is close to impossible to play at that pace for the entire course of an NHL season. And if you do, we'll use last year's example in the Boston Bruins, best regular season ever. Where did that get you? It got you a first-round playoff exit in Game 7 and overtime at home. So My point is this. There always are peaks and valleys in a season every year.
Yeah.
I know why you're laughing. There's things going on here in the studio behind us, in front of us, all over the place. But there are parts of a season where you're going to have ups and downs. Teams are not going to go through a playing 18-4 style hockey the entire season. It's just not going to happen. All right. So I'm glad you guys can laugh about this. I mean, we really can. We are multi-talented. It's all off camera too. Like no one would even see what's going on. Oh my God. I hope so. I hope that was off camera. So there's no reason to panic. The Rangers still, with 3 months left of a regular season, are going to have, I guess it was on camera now that I see in the comments, but but they're going to have 3 months of the season where you're going to still have peaks and valleys and whatnot, and it's going to happen. So Kaapo Kakko's return, encouraging for sure to see. Hopefully they can build off that. What will be interesting to see, and last night was not a good example of this, but everyone now knows, because when Blake Wheeler scores a goal, the DMs on the Mind Your Pucking Business Instagram page goes off like
told you he's the best ever.
So last night he scored a goal. I'll tell you a funny story about this goal last night. His first goal, true story. I'm watching the game with my wife, and Johnny Brzezinski's playing with him. And Johnny Brzezinski has the puck behind the net. And I am literally, I'm not even joking. I am saying to Jess, I don't understand why people love Johnny Brzezinski so much. He's okay, but people love the guy. And she goes, watch, he'll probably score because you say that. So Johnny Brzezinski throws the puck at the net, and who tips it in? Blake Wheeler. I mean, it was like comical. Why don't we pull up Chris's comment? Because I see it's also getting some responses from other people. And that is the last one. Yeah. Kakko makes the first line able to defend and puts Wheeler back on the third line and an NHL player back to the AHL.
Wow.
And that's right. And that is what David Pignotta said last week, is that one thing that would happen with Kaapo Kakko coming back is it would probably allow Blake Wheeler to not have to play on the first line. And that is an example, not me being negative, but it's just true. That's an example of addition by subtraction, right? Yeah. You're adding to your first line by getting the ability to move Blake Wheeler off of it.
Absolutely. One thing I think you should touch base upon is a little bit of the standings here. So right now, the Rangers are number one in the Metro with 28 wins. So the whole Eastern Conference, they have the whole Eastern Conference with the Panthers with 27 wins. You want to keep that lead, and then in the Metro, the next one of the Flyers with 24 wins. So I wouldn't say these games are each game individually is a must win, but you want to have that buffer.
Yeah, you want the buffer, but I just have a problem when fans are sitting here Saturday going into Washington because they've lost 3 in a row, saying to themselves, it's a must-win game. I understand. I get it. You're frustrated the Rangers lost a couple games in a row, and we're not used to that. But I'm not sure it uses the term must-win. So to go back to Chris's comment, can we put it up one more time? Because I think it was that good, is that Kakko makes the first line able to defend, and by doing that, it puts Wheeler back on the third line and an AHL player back to the AHL. And it's exactly what David Pignotta said would happen last week with Kakko returning. So hopefully they can get some of that. So
and with your real quick before you move on, Kakko might be doing things that you don't necessarily see on the stat sheet.
That is true. That is. Well, and I don't mean this negatively, but to back you up, if you look at Kakko's stat sheet from the year, even before he got hurt, there wasn't a lot, but he clearly was doing things that were not on the stat sheet. Before we get to our guest, we'll take the last comment, and that is that the Flyers are flying, and they are. Look, I have always been a John Tortorella fan. I don't root for him now because he's in Philly, and we know we don't really support that city here. But the job that John Tortorella is doing in Philadelphia, when they do the Jack Adams Award, the Coach of the Year, I mean, Laviolette's got to be in the conversation, but John Tortorella is clearly and deservedly going to get votes. He's done that team. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't put my money right now that they're going to win the cup this year. But man, is he getting the most out of it. Now, the problem with John Tortorella, if you remember when he was with the Rangers too, is that there's always eventually a time where his message just runs out. Like the Rangers were eliminated in Boston. They got through the first round. And then, exit interviews with Glenn Sather. Glenn Sather said, whoa, John Tortorella, you've lost the locker room. We're out. kind of happened in Vancouver. It was a short stay, but the man's a good coach. The Flyers are flying. So let's shift gears. We will bring in our guest. Let's see if we can get her in. And that is Mollie Walker, who you will all know if you are a Ranger fan. She's with the New York Post. She's also a contributor for the NHL Network. And she's also a host of my favorite other Ranger podcast, Up in the Blue Seats. We will bring her in. How are you, Mollie?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear us. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see. I don't know. Let's see.
We hear you.
We can hear you fine. Let's see if we can.
Now we don't hear you.
Now we don't hear you. All right, we'll get it worked out. But we'll get Mollie in a minute. But we'll go back to the John Tortorella comments, which is he's been just unbelievable.
Maybe do microphone, no headphones. Maybe that might be the solution. Oh,
let's see.
Can't hear you. Uh-oh.
It looks like we are still heard on other angles because I can see comments are still coming in on some of the things we're saying. So I think it might just be something there. But we will wait to get
this gives us a chance to tell everyone that we are live, as you can see. So if you have a question, comment, or concern, you can put it in the comments section. And myself, Jeff, or Mollie will answer you live.
We will on the fly. Yeah. So
negative.
So, all right, let's see. No. Yeah, we don't hear her.
How about now?
Yep. Now we can hear you.
There we go. All right. It was the headphones. The headphones were the issue.
All right. Well, good. Well, let me pretend that's totally fine. Well, this is Mollie Walker. You know her from the New York Post, contributor as well for the NHL Network and host of Up in the Blue Seats. How are you, Mollie?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Well, we're glad to finally have you. And we have a lot of people in the chat room that are excited. I can see that you are here. So let me ask you some questions before you head. Are you heading out to Vegas today?
Yes, I am.
Lucky you. It's a good city to go to. All right, let's start here. If I take the roster this year from last year, it's not dramatically different.
No.
How much of this season is really Peter Laviolette and the coaching staff, what we're seeing?
Look, I'll be honest. It's a really big portion of it, just because I feel like when you do look at this Rangers team the last few years, the foundation has been the same. Like you said, it's the same core group of guys, and they've gone through almost like stages of coaching, starting with, if we're going to make a starting point, David Quinn, came in, was supposed to have a developmental touch, was supposed to usher them through this like in-between period while they're trying to work toward a championship window. And he did that. And then they needed somebody a little bit tougher, a little bit more experience, a little bit, more hands-off in particular. And that was Gerard Gallant. And he was exactly that. It was a breath of fresh air when he came in after Quinn. He was incredibly hands-off, very much so. The message was, go do and do what you do well. And then that got a little old as well. And then the core wanted more coaching and, in-game adjustments and just more of a set plan. And that's what I feel like Peter Laviolette has brought in. And I feel like the Rangers and the core have gone through the coaching staffs that they've needed to in order to get to this point, because, and Larry and I have talked about this before, I don't think the Rangers would have been as receptive to Laviolette if he came in after Quinn. I think that they needed Gerard Gallant as a bit of a buffer to then want more extreme coaching, more hands-on, more of a direction. And that's why I feel like they're so bought into Peter Laviolette. I mean, you could see when he speaks to the team on the ice, it's a different kind of connection. They do seem to hang on every word that he says. So I do feel like he is righting the ship. He is very much so leading the ship. He made it very clear in training camp that anything and everything is his decision and he gets final say on everything. So I think that he really has his fingerprints all over this team right now. And I think that the start that we saw from them, while it might have been a bit of an aberration, it was in response to how well they were responding to Laviolette and the way that he does things. And I also think that, I wrote about the practices and the competition and how it's just been at the root of everything that the Rangers do. They love it. They keep track of score every day in morning skate. they're doing competitions, so I think that they really like it. I think that they agree that it's good for them. So I just feel like it's one big buy-in right now from this group.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never really thought of it as, but it's a great point with the buffer coming from, GG in the middle there. Maybe you appreciate it more. So a question that just came in for you, and I was about to ask the same sort of question, so I'll pull it up. I was going to ask you about the assistant coaches because I thought they did a great job with the assistant coach hires. I mean, Phil Housley, who's better to work with your defense? Pekka,
Right.
The faceoffs have improved. Muse. So I'll even bring this question. Does Drury get credit for bringing in a staff like this as a whole? Do you think it's the assistants as well and Drury doing that?
Well, this is Laviolette's staff. He's worked with a lot of these guys in previous stops. So I think that also goes to Laviolette. Obviously, Drury, signs off on the entire staff. So I'm sure he had a say in it, obviously. But these are guys that are Laviolette guys and guys that he's worked with in the past. So I think that I'm right there with you. Right when they made all the hires, we looked at this group and it's just a unique blend of backgrounds and personalities and different sort of standings in the NHL too. I mean, Pekka and Housley are so well respected. Dan Muse is considered to be a rink rat around, just the hockey scene in general. And you should hear the way that his voice booms over the ice. Like it's a vibe. It's a vibe. And by the way, Muse is the one who keeps track of all the competition, when they split into different jerseys and keep track of who's winning and who has to do the gassers at the end of the practice or push-ups or whatever it may be. So yeah, I do think that, it falls more on Laviolette because these are Laviolette guys and that's who he decided to bring in with him. And I think it's a very unique blend of guys, and you don't really see it that often. So I like it. I like what it's done for the Rangers as well. If you look at Pekka in particular, and Larry wrote about this, I think in our Plus program, who knows how long Pekka is going to be available to continue being an assistant coach,
right?
Because he's just somebody that could probably make it as a head coach.
Yes, you could definitely see that down the road for him, and deservedly so. So let's go back to the offseason for a minute. I was at the time a big fan of the Blake Wheeler signing. I looked at it and I said, it's low risk, it's low term, it's a low amount of years, in 1 year, obviously. And you know what? Maybe there's some upside at that. But it just really hasn't evolved. It hasn't worked out. I could take last night out of the equation, and one of the 2 goals was an empty netter that Zibanejad maybe could have put in, and I kind of felt like he handed it to Wheeler, but that's besides the point. What do you think is the plan for him in the rest of the season now that Capo Caco is back and probably going to that top spot right wing?
Well, I mean, I think if it actually, I think I wrote about this too, if it actually came down to it and they didn't feel like he benefited the lineup at all in any way, shape, or form, even in a bottom 6 role, I'm pretty sure they would have to talk to him about, I think he has a no move, doesn't he? I think he does.
I believe he does as well. I think
Yeah,
you're right.
I'm pretty sure he does. So with that, the Rangers would have to talk to him about anything that they do and get his okay on it, whether if it would be to waive him or trade him. They would have to have that conversation with him. But I feel like that's probably a last resort. I think that he still could carve out a role for himself on a third line. But yes, it obviously hasn't gone the way that everybody thought it was going to. It does make it, being an $800,000 signing, look a little bit better, I guess.
For sure.
But I don't think anybody really anticipated the drop off to be as significant as it was at 37 for Blake Wheeler. But in terms of in the locker room, though, I do feel like he still has value. He is a leadership voice. I feel like he has a demeanor that will be beneficial to feed off of in the playoffs, just because even though this is a battle-tested group now, you could argue that they've been through a couple playoff rounds together. You always want a guy like Blake Wheeler in the room who has that sort of, experience that you can lean on. So I do see his role diminishing more than it is now, especially if it continues going the direction that it has been. But I think it would really be like a last resort sort of thing, and they would have a conversation with him before they made any sort of move.
Okay. Why don't we pull up Chris's comment? The father time is undefeated, and that is, which is true. The father time is proving to be undefeated. So,
Yes.
all right.
Unless you're Jonathan Quick.
Yes, that is true. Father time, whatever he's eating in the off season or found to drink is good. Should there be a concern to me if I'm an opposing coach playing against the Rangers? 5-on-5, obviously the Trocheck, Lafreniere, and Panarin line has been exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I mean, and I'm going to call out the top line in particular, they're not getting a lot of 5-on-5 production. I mean, thankfully, their power play is what it is. How much of a concern is this that right now, 5-on-5, they're almost a one-line team?
It's definitely a concern. And I think the way that Laviolette has managed the bench during this mini rut, I guess you could describe it as, has been pretty interesting as well. I mean, he cuts the bench in half entirely, just cuts it in half. But it's difficult to blame him. Who wouldn't want Artemi Panarin out on the ice as much as humanly possible, especially with the way that line has been operating? But it's obviously not sustainable. I think that there is an argument to be made that while they do probably rely too much on their power play, I feel like the Rangers do have a lot of these sorts of traits where it's like, well, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And yet, sometimes during these ebbs and flows of a season, it is sustainable. They do rack up wins by, getting a large portion of their offense from the power play, or having their goaltending steal game after game after game for them. It's something that I guess, do you want the Rangers to apologize for it? Probably not, because this is how they're built. But that being said, I think that the 5-on-5, you need to bring in some two-way guys before the trade deadline. And that's how you benefit that, I think, and try to move that along in a direction that's going to make you an actual Stanley Cup contender. So I do think that 5-on-5 is a concern right now, and it has been a concern for this team for some time. But if they are able to figure that out a little bit better, obviously, I think it would be much more beneficial for them. But it's going to take some reinforcements, I think.
Yeah. So with the trade line coming, we'll pull in another comment. Why don't we pull up Alvin's comments, because it'll lead into the next question. And that is, if Kakko doesn't work out on the top line right wing, they should move him down to the third, Wheeler to the fourth, and Drury should go after Zuccarello and bring him back. I'm not sure that Matt Zuccarello is the answer, and I know he was a fan favorite here, especially at that contract. I don't even think it would work. But if you were Chris Drury,
I hate questions that start that way.
All right. If you were the great Mollie Walker, right, and you looked at the Rangers roster, are you looking for a certain name right now, or is there certain just positions, let's say, or spots that you need to fill, and then you go from there? How would you approach it?
Well, we were just talking about this extensively in our podcast, actually, but a lot of what the Rangers do at this trade deadline is going to depend on Filipino and his availability. That's what makes projecting the Rangers trade deadline moves almost impossible, because the team with and without Filipino, and maybe with and without a fully healthy Filipino, is a lot different and changes the direction that Drury is going to go into. Because if Filipino is not available by the playoffs, which is still a possibility, they need a center. They need another center. And that becomes the utmost priority. And in that case, I do see Drury going after maybe more of a name rather than, just filling the role, because that's obviously a huge position in your lineup that needs to be wrapped up. If Chytil is good to go, then I do anticipate, looking at a right wing spot, which they have for the last 3 seasons. They're always looking for a top 6 right winger. That's not going to change this year again. And then padding out the wings in the bottom 6 as well. But it's really difficult to predict right now because there is so much uncertainty surrounding Filipino, and that is really going to dictate the direction that Chris Drury goes in for the trade deadline.
Do you think they look to add a little bit more depth defensively, maybe the third pair? I mean, Gustafsson has kind of worked out, I would say, but do you think, that's usually a common move I've seen the Rangers do? You think they'll do that again? Look that direction?
Again, I think it depends on, are they going to have Filipino's LTIR pool to work with? It depends on the deals that are put in front of him. Is he Mikkola last year was kind of like a bonus, part of the deal. And I think that that's still a possibility. And if Drury's able to, find a deal that includes that, I don't think that they would hate that. I do think that they view Zach Jones as a true 7D. They at the beginning of the season, it was very much so they felt like Zach Jones had graduated from the AHL. So I do think that they do see him as a part of their depth and as a contributing part of their depth. But it's going to depend on how much money they have at the deadline, if they have Chytil's LTIR pool to work with or not. It's really there's so much up in the air that it's really, really difficult to say for the trade deadline right now, because Chytil really is just a big question mark right now.
Okay. We'll pull up just that last comment. And that is it a one and done right wing, or is it someone with term? You think they'd go out and get a rental, or do you think it's someone that would have term?
I mean, if you look at their cap situation, I know it's supposed to go up, I think $4 million next year. But they really have just been in the market for rentals the last 3 seasons. So, and most times when they get, Vetrano, Andrew Kopp, those guys go on to sign deals that the Rangers just have not been able to afford. So probably rental, unless, because you also have to think that Drury is probably not necessarily looking to subtract from what they have right now. Why would you create another hole to fill another one? It's just counterproductive. Right. So I don't think so.
All right. Last question before we let you go. Is there any concern with Igor? And this is what I mean by it. He's played well, but what we have seen this year that we have not seen is incredible inconsistencies. So he's proven he's still obviously got the talent. I don't think anyone's concerned. But is there concern with how just not consistent he's been like he normally is?
I do think there's concern for the Rangers in general, because they rely so heavily on their goaltending, and their goaltending has been so strong for them in recent memory. So when it's not, it's very much so exposed and almost exploited. So I do think that, if you look at Igor's body of work since he came into the league, it's had ups and downs. It has. He started off so strong. You can't forget that he came in. But if you're asking me, I haven't seen that. I mean, it was 12 games and he was out. I think he won 10 of them. He was outrageous in that first 2019-20 season. But it hasn't. There have been flashes of it, and it has been sustained for long periods of time. But I don't know if I've seen him be as good as he was when he first came in. But yeah, it's concerned to the extent of the Rangers do need, someone who's extremely reliable back there on a nightly basis. And they can get lit up, when it's not there. As far as concern, I think that Igor is a tremendous competitor, and he puts so much pressure on himself. He knows that he's not playing well right now. He said it to Larry. He said, just look at my numbers. It's not lost on him that he's not playing up to the standard that he expects of himself and that the Rangers have become used to, from him. But I don't know if we're crossing into alarming territory yet, because he's still, stealing wins for them on occasion. But you're right. It has been inconsistent, and that's something that's going to have to change in the playoffs, obviously.
Yes. Well, as we know, the recipe every year with whoever wins the Stanley Cup every year, it's always goaltending is
Yep.
the main recipe of your dish. So Mollie, we thank you for your time. We know you've got a flight to catch. Enjoy the West Coast. And please do us a favor. When you come back, bring us back some of the West Coast weather because we need it here in the worst way.
Yeah, I hope. I will try my absolute best.
Please pack it up. Thank you. That is Mollie Walker. We thank you from the New York Post and as well as host as Up in the Blue Seats and from the NHL Network. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mollie.
Mollie is the best. So.
Absolutely.
So really good insight there. As we march through the season, because the season is a marathon, but it is also a sprint kind of within some parts of the season, I always say. We are getting close to, believe it or not, the trading deadline, which will be very interesting around here to see what they do. Yes.
And I think that's been a common theme that we've talked about and Mollie highlighted is that, we're coming to the trade deadline, but we don't want to mess with our groove and give anything up.
Yes, I need to say something, and I believe Antoinette is watching because it involves you.
Ooh, you know.
Yes. Yesterday, someone who may have been the person I just mentioned, commented about your hockey knowledge improving on the show.
Oh, thank you.
This was the comment we got. We love you guys. I am also glad that Doug is giving us a lot more hockey input.
Ooh.
And today,
now
you have continued that trend by being very hockey focused, commenting on Kako. Is it not what's on the stat sheet and all that stuff? You were great. We've made you into a hockey guy,
a hockey maven, as you say.
A lacrosse, the other national sport of Canada, which was an argument we had.
The national sport, and I'm not saying one's better than the other in any way, shape, or form. It actually is it's the national sport of Canada. And a lot of my lacrosse teammates, like John Tavares, who's my teammate, is now a pro hockey player and captain.
He is of his hometown Toronto Maple Leafs. So the New York Rangers go out west. They'll be in Vegas tomorrow night. They'll be in LA on Saturday, saluting the fans over there. They'll be in Anaheim on Sunday, and then they finish up their West Coast trip. Well, we'll be back on Tuesday. They'll be in San Jose on Tuesday. So shifting gears to football. And you see, Doug, look, she's even commenting for you.
I know. That's what I was
saying. I didn't see. So see, Antoinette appreciates that, we're making you blue shirt Ranger focused, which is not easy to do, but we have done that. All right, NFL. I don't have, to the production people here, I don't have what I'm supposed to read, so we don't need the little promo clip that we normally do. I don't have it. So
I mean,
we're fine for a week. We'll be fine for a week. I got you. We'll do it twice next week if need be. I'm sure it'll be fine.
You sure? We can condense it and make it a little short.
All right, you know what? I'll condense. I'll do my own little thing here. With the NFL playoffs coming this weekend, make sure you check out DraftKings Sportsbook with 4 really good divisional games on the line.
Yes.
It is a wonderful weekend to join if you haven't joined already. If you go on to DraftKings, you'll find various promo codes and bonuses, and they are running them like crazy. And how do I know it? Because I get the emails about it every day because I use DraftKings myself. So make sure you check out DraftKings this weekend for either NFL action, NHL action, NBA action, whatever you want. Make sure you check it out.
Which is also important if you need help. Help is available for you at 1-800-662-4357. I hope that's the right number. If it's not the right number, I apologize. And you can go into Google and find the right number.
Whatever business just number you gave out is going to be real thrilled when they get the calls.
Absolutely.
I need help gambling. I'm sorry. This is a bakery.
We cannot help. That's the national help.
We cannot
also,
help.
You can do 1-800-GAMBLER.
Got it. That, you know what? When all else fails, go back to the basics. All right. So NFL football. This weekend, let's not, because we have a little bit of lack of time here left. So let's not really go back and evaluate really the past weekend a ton, because I want to talk about what we have coming up, because the divisional round, which is where we're at, is usually a lot of times the best weekend of football the whole season. And there were some really good games. But Cowboys out. They were the second biggest favorite of the week. I guess the Bills were -10, the Cowboys were -9.5. I'm watching that game on Sunday. I took it very low key. It was my birthday Sunday. I also was sick. So you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome for being here on the earth.
Thank you. You're welcome. So I'm watching the game, and what is it, like 20 or 27 nothing? And it's like in your mind, the back of your head, I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, we've seen this script before. Why did we all fall for it?
True.
Right? Why?
True.
They're
I
out.
mean, this was exaggerated this year.
This was
bad.
That was the worst you could have ever had.
Yeah. And it wasn't one play like a butt fumble or something. It was like the whole game was. Like what? 2 pick sixes?
What a mess.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm upset by it. And then you have the Eagles Monday night, which I think everybody around here was happy about, myself included. Yes. That happened. You had Buffalo winning. You had Houston. And I said last week, I was surprised Houston was +3 at home and they ended up blowing out the Browns.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah. And then what else? Yeah, Kansas City beating Miami. So it sets up some really good games. So this weekend, the first game is Houston at Baltimore. You got to go with Baltimore, right? However, CJ Stroud, the way the guy plays, would it be the upset of the century if they went into Baltimore and found a way to win? No, definitely would not.
Pretty good upset.
It would be a pretty good upset. Baltimore should win that.
Satisfying. I'm not really
Saturday night. Yeah. I don't think is that good. I think the matchup, I think the teams involved, his history is good, but I don't think it's that good of a matchup. Green Bay at San Francisco. San Francisco's a heavy favorite. San Francisco should win.
Storyline,
right?
If the Browns made it, the Browns, Joe Flacco playing against the Ravens, that would have been a good storyline.
Yes, but he didn't. So, so I would say you got Baltimore, San Francisco advancing.
Bills, Chiefs.
We're going to get there. We're going in order.
Not bad.
It's fine. And then Sunday, the first game is kind of, I want to say, maybe right now they're America's adoptive team, and that is Detroit. If you saw
100%, yes.
Did you see? This was really cool.
I saw it.
There's a ton of TikTok videos, Instagram stuff of Detroit fans, either watching in their house, in the game, their first playoff win in 30-something years. Just the joy it brought them. It is, and we've talked about how much we love Dan Campbell, as a dude, he's so easy to root for. Eminem was there. I mean, it's they're now the adopted team.
Yes. So at the post game, you know how they give out the game ball. So Dan Campbell's like, I'm just gonna leave it at this. Jared Goff, you're good enough for Detroit. And he throws
yes. And the other game ball went to
let's go.
Yes. And the other game ball he gave out went to the other deserving person there, which was the general manager. Yes. So Detroit Tampa is a good matchup. Detroit should win. They're the better team. But when I see what Tampa did the other night and the way Baker Mayfield played, I don't think it's a given. But I would lean Detroit, and I would like Detroit to win.
Yes.
The best game of the weekend.
Yes.
Easily on paper is Kansas City at Buffalo. Because if Buffalo is ever, and I want Buffalo to win the Super Bowl, I'm not a Buffalo Bills fan, but this is who I'm rooting for right now. I want Buffalo, and if not Buffalo, Detroit. But if Buffalo is ever going to get over the hump, right? They lost, was it 2 years ago, the heartbreak in Kansas City, that wild back and forth game with the lead changes. They lost last year at home to Cincinnati. This is now your opportunity. Kansas City this year is not the great Kansas City. They're still good, but they're not the same Kansas City at all. You are playing right now really well. Josh Allen is out of his mind. They have some good receivers. The rookie Kincaid, the tight end, is playing really well. You're home. That's not a huge home advantage because Kansas City just won a game in Kansas City in 3-degree weather.
Yes and no. This is the first away game Mahomes is
really?
in the playoffs, I believe.
Wouldn't surprise me. You're probably
the first
right.
away Patrick Mahomes
and
playoff game.
That place up there has got to be rocking. Sunday night, they'll be jumping off tables. The Bills Mafia.
I mean, covered in mustard and ketchup.
Yeah, they will
be rocking.
They will be nuts. I looked last night. I don't know why I did because I don't have any interest in going, so I didn't look for this reason. But I looked on StubHub. I'm thinking that the ticket was going to
go.
I'm not. I'm just curious at was it that expensive? And it wasn't. The get-in price last night was $180.
It's freezing cold.
Yeah, I get it. But those people up there. But that game is great.
Yeah.
And if you're Buffalo, because I talked about this last week when we talked about them being plus 650 to win the Super Bowl. If you can get past Kansas City, you probably have to go into Baltimore. You can beat it doesn't. You wouldn't be favored, but you're not a massive underdog either.
So I went to school in Buffalo, and when the Giants played in the Super Bowl, that's around when the Giants beat Brady for the what was it, 17-1 season,
2007.
Yep. So all my teammates and all my friends at Buffalo, the start of the game they didn't care, but by the end of the game they were all Giants fans. It was a crazy game. So like they root for me, and I kind of root for the Bills when necessary. And like that's one of the games where like the back of my mind, like, do I want to make a trip back up to see the boys and go do that? Because that's gonna be rocking.
So
do the Seagulls? Do the Seagulls play in a dome?
Seahawks?
The Seahawks, yes.
They
Seagulls.
Seagulls.
The
They
Seahawks
used
play
to. They do not. They play outside now.
My point is, they have the loudest stadium. They're the 12th man. They got like they did the decibel thing.
Yep.
I think the Bills might give them a run for their money for that record or that seat, because like it's gonna be rocking. It's gonna be loud nonstop. Patrick Mahomes is in trouble.
I would hope that Buffalo wins. But you can never count out Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey. So you wouldn't be, and I believe the line is only 2.5 towards Buffalo. So it's not a huge favorite either.
Yeah.
But you would hope that they win. And because the other thing with Buffalo is it's not that Josh Allen is in the second half of his career, but things are going to like your window is only, and you see it with the Rangers too, right? Your window is only open for so long. I mean, look at, you can see that. So we shall see. So NFL playoffs this weekend. We thank you for tuning in. We thank our sponsors as always, the Bamboozle Project. Use promo code MYPB. Check out all of your gear on the website. DraftKings as well. We thank you. And any other comments from you, sir?
No, it's going to be a good week of football.
There
was a couple good games, but like there was a couple blowouts. I feel like these games are going to be.
Yeah, this weekend, when you think about it, I guess the Detroit, other than the Detroit LA game, there really wasn't a game that came down at the end. Like, really was like towards the end. There wasn't. Usually the divisional weekend is where you get some close games and should be good.
Yeah.
And hopefully, more importantly, the teams that you're betting on or the teams that you like and support are the ones that emerge victorious.
Yeah, I don't see any blowups this week. I think they're all going to be good games.
Well, the San Francisco line, I believe, is 9.5.
Yeah, but like that
could be closer.
They're viewing Jordan Love from like 3 months ago. I think they're getting their shit. They're getting their stuff together.
I wonder what, before we leave, I wonder what the line is on that first game. The 9. You know what? Both games are 9.5. Houston and Baltimore, and Green Bay and San Francisco 9.5. Detroit is a 6.5 point favorite. That seems a lot to me. And the Bills, like I said, are -2.5. So that last game, it's almost like you get those 3 games first, and then you deal with that last game.
Now, here's a dumb question for you.
There are no dumb questions.
I'm not going to look it up right now. I'll just ask you. Let's just say Green Bay beats San Francisco, the 1 seed. Do they now get do they carry that 1 seed honor?
No, they'd be way the rest of the.
So Detroit would be home, or
Tampa would be home, whoever won.
Gotcha.
Right, and so basically, it's the same thing. If Houston won, they would play at the winner of Kansas City or Buffalo.
Gotcha.
Because that's how the NFL works.
Interesting.
So yeah, good question though. Not a dumb question. And I'm sure there's people out there that didn't know that.
There you go.
So we thank you for tuning in. Thank you for bearing with us. We thank the great Mollie Walker who was with us. We appreciate her coming on before she heads out to Vegas today. And we appreciate you guys accommodating the date change. We should be back on our normal spot Tuesday, 10 a.m. next week. And we will see you then. Have a great week.